Last test was chapter 5, chapter 6, and chapter 7. You got to be able to handle the tables. 5.1, 5.2, and 5.8. Got to have command of those. You got to be able to do bending or flexure. You ought to be able to do shear. You ought to do bearing. You ought to be able to do deflection. And then the last thing is you ought to be able to do rafters and joist. Then we went to chapter 6. You ought to be able to use a table. Doug, fir, larch, number 1. You ought to be able to use that table. You ought to be able to do the analytical. So you ought to be able to get yourself in a position where you know that the 8, 5. Let me make sure. Analytical, and then you got off center. So you got those guys, and if you look in your book and you go to chapter number 6, the equations I'm looking for are on page 238, and that's the equation for P. And then that's on page 238. And then if you look at the one for eccentricity, that's back a few pages. And the table happens to be table 6.1. This is table 6.1. And then if you go back a ways and you look at eccentricity, the equation I need you to know is on page 250. And then the last one is chapter 7, and that's nails. So you ought to be able to handle plywood or dimensional, nailed into various pieces of wood. That's a table, mainly. You got to do a little calculation, but the table is 7.1. So hopefully you ought to be able to pull through that and read the right numbers. So there's what we've covered. Okay, here's a exam that was given a year ago. Okay? I'm going to go through it and tell you what's on this exam. Your exam's going to have a flavor that's pretty close to this. So, this particular one, I gave you a beam with loading. You had to find the shear and moment diagram. Okay, there's number 1. Number 2, gave you a truss. You had to find the reaction and find several members. This truss had 2, 4, 6, 7 members. I asked you to find 4 of them. Okay? Once again, don't be a hero and give me everything you think I want. The problem tells you what I want. You don't have to think about it. If you do all the stuff you think you need to do, you're going to run out of time. I know that. That's why I'm only asking you for part of them. So, I asked you for 4 members, there's 7. If you give me all 7, you're a fool. Just give me the 4 that I asked for. Okay? There's a reason for that. Okay? I'm not going to look at you as being a genius. If you do that, you're a fool. Okay? You give what you're supposed to give, not a bunch extra, because you're going to run out of time. It's a given. I know that. Okay? So do what I asked. The next one was for a beam. And it was, actually this one asked for several things. It asked for bending, it asked for shear, and it asked for deflection. So that was a beam. That was number 3. Next one was a column with eccentricity. It's a wood column with eccentricity. The next one was And this particular problem used this. Okay, the loading was given so you could use page 114. The shape was given so you could use the cross-sectional properties in the back of the book. And you had to find the two stresses, the shear and the bending. Next one was a statics problem. Okay, statics problem. Next one was a vector problem. I gave you 4 vectors emanating from a point. I asked you to find the resultant direction and magnitude. Next one was a math problem. Next one was a nail problem, actually. And the last one was, depending on how you did it, was one of those. So if you go through this, the only thing that wasn't taken care of on this particular exam was chapter 2. Okay, and rafters and joists. Those are the 2 things that I didn't cover on this exam. Everything else is pretty much covered. It's got 10 problems total. Okay, it was set up for 1 hour and 45 minutes. You have 2 hours and 15 minutes minimum, up to maybe even 2 hours and 10 more minutes. Depends on how fast you package your file to send it back to me. So this is what you're going to see. They're the same flavor as your tests, a little bit easier. Okay, but the concepts on your 3 tests will define the problems that are going to be on the final exam, and they should be pretty much parallel to that. So take a look at it. Depends on the time. I'm going to have a time. You may end up with these 2 may switch. Okay. Other than that, you may have something slip in here. I don't know what I'd get rid of, but I don't want it to make it too long. I want to make it so that a couple of the students who are doing very well will be done within probably 1 hour and 15 minutes. So that's my goal. So if I start adding a bunch of problems, if it takes them too long, it's going to take the students who don't have that well of a command of the material quite a bit longer. So most of you are coming back in the fall. This is, you got another structures course to take, so you at least have 1 more semester. Hopefully I'll see you in the fall. I may get lucky enough to see some of you or talk to some of you this summer. Co-ops, I'm not sure how they're going to do it. The way it sounds right now, the face-to-face, me coming to sites and meeting you is probably not going to be on the table. It looks like it'll be a phone interview and then grading your reports for your summer co-op. And I think hopefully most of you have got something going on. If you haven't addressed your co-op, please do. The rules have changed dramatically. They've been relaxed quite a bit. You don't need the full 15 weeks anymore to get full credit. So if you think that you can't get a 15-weeker and that eliminates you from a co-op, you're wrong. Check with people, make sure you understand the rules so that you don't let something slip by that you could have done. Have a safe summer. Hopefully in the fall, I'll see some of you either in class or walking the halls. So that'll be it for this course. Thank you.